So, you can only laugh at this because the irony is quite funny. I've already mentioned in past videos about how Brexiteers love the idea of parliamentary sovereignty and the idea that of our political system should be free of EU shackles. Now, when the parliamentary system acts in their favour, they are like, great, that's awesome. But the second it does something they do not like, this case it being the House of Lords, and for once sanity has prevailed, because this has made me absolutely insane, because I spent probably about a good day, at least if not more, reading all the speeches that the Lords gave during the Brexit bill. And you know what was the common denominator in all these speeches? The fact that the Lords were horrified that the government didn't have a plan for Brexit. And many of you Brexiteers might be saying, well, hang on, the government did have a plan. To which I say, I'd love to be able to see what that plan was. Even when they released the paper, I was like, this is not a plan. I've said this before, but our government has a woefully simplistic version of what it expects to be Brexit. And instead of appointing people who know about the EU and understand the EU as an institution, not just as an economic bloc, but as a system of laws attached to it as well, instead our government has attached hardliners who basically want to take a wrecking ball and just destroy the EU as fast as possible, not for convenience sake of building something better, which is what we should be aiming for, by the way, not just leaving, because as I've said, this makes us look really bad on an international stage, because this basically says to anyone else in the world, don't count on the UK, because when things go bad, we'll up and leave. Yeah, that's literally what we are saying to the world when, again, the EU is facing this crisis. What we should have been doing from the very start is being the voice for change and the voice for mechanism and change within the EU. This is a voice that we could have carried and would have won the day. You want all these, alt-right, the rise of the right wing in parties, and you have literally a guy in the moment sitting in the EU Parliament doing a Nazi salute and saying absolutely ridiculous things like women are stupider than men because they eat less, and the mind boggles. But it all comes back to when I've already just talked about that, but we all come back to the situation of the Lords. Indeed, it's funny when the fact that you go through Nigel Farage's past comments and we see that Nigel Farage loves the House of Lords. Nigel Farage wants to be appointed to the House of Lords in days gone by, but now, all of a sudden, this political elitist, and make no mistake, ladies and gentlemen, Nigel Farage is a political elitist, something which Brexiteers hate, now goes out and says, we should get rid of the House of Lords. Well, this is a complete U-turn for the books. And why, again, has the Lords rejected the bill, the Article 50 bill? Because it specifically says that members of Parliament should have the right to vote on the final terms of the bill. And this gets right to the core of the problem. If you want and bang on about parliamentary sovereignty, then you should want the Parliament and your MP to vote on the final details of this bill. And much to the chagrin of people saying that this is delaying or going to stop the EU, it's not. Parliament is very basically pulled the lever and in favour of pulling the lever, much to my and the other 42% of us out there doing so. But hey, you know what? There's no such thing as the tyranny of the majority, is there? So this is what, and this again comes back to, if you read all their speeches, they have literally gone out and said, look, things have not been discussed, things have not been put in place. The recent budget, Brexit was not talked about or discussed at all. Something to which you think, if it's going to happen, it should be discussed. But this is because, as I've said, our parliament and our government have a woefully simplistic view. And here's the thing. All of you saying, it's because the EU was going to give us a bad deal. No, it's because our government is expecting things from the EU, which, quite frankly, the EU doesn't want to give us because it's part of the membership package. And as I've said before numerous times, this is the analogy. We are leaving a gym, but we still want access to the gym. Now, people have disagreed with me, but I'm sorry, this sums it up in so many good ways. We are still demanding access to the EU, but saying we don't want to be a part of it. This sums up our entire, relationship from the EU right from the very beginning. We have been straddling the fence for years of non-committal, committal constantly. But now that a voice of reason in the Lords have basically hit the ball back, saying that MPs should be allowed a final say on the deal. Something which, if you are in favour of parliamentary sovereignty, which many of you claim are, MPs should be allowed to vote on what this final bill is. Because, as we've said, we haven't discussed this yet, but there is such thing as the Henry VIII clause coming in, which will basically give members of Parliament right to basically eradicate laws or basically rewrite new ones without any parliamentary authority. Again, if you are in favour of parliamentary sovereignty, like many of you claim you are, then you should be rejoicing at the Lord's decision on this, because this gives Parliament sovereignty to vote on the final details of the Brexit bill. And if you claim that that is what you want, then you should have no problem with what the House of Lords did.